Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some additional context. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll up to where my customers are. And inside of my customers, I've got my bill to salesperson. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my salesperson and I'm just going to go ahead and drag and drop it right into this drop zone that's right over here. Now I'm starting to see all of my salespeople. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger because I want to make it available for some additional information that I'm going to add. So now what I'm going to do is I've got my activity count for 6,600, but what I'm going to do is I want to break that down now by salesperson. So I'm going to scroll down to where I have my activity count, which is right here, and I'm just going to go ahead and just drag and drop it right over, just to the right over here, so I can see it now by salesperson. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and sort things. So I'm going to click on the activity count column, and if I right click, I have the ability now to sort, and I'm just going to say sort it in descending mode. So now it's telling me of all of these salespeople, Serge D has 1,770 of those activities. Jeff has 1,250, Linda has 1,208, and so on and so forth. If I actually went ahead and clicked on Serge D as an example, it's actually going to show 1,770, and I can see of that 1,770 that generated $14.7 million of quotes, $17.1 million of orders, and $16 million of gross sales. Now, I can go ahead and take off that selection for Serge by just control clicking, and now it's back to our original total. Now I want to start bringing in some other stuff. I want to actually start seeing things by salesperson. So I'm going to just move my mouse up a little bit over here, and I'm going to start bringing in things like quote gross sales. And I'm just going to bring it right next to the activity count. So now I'm starting to see what Serge did in terms of actual revenue compared to Jeff, compared to Linda. From a quote perspective, I can do the exact same thing from an orders perspective and just drag and drop it. And now I see it for orders. And the final one I'm going to do is with respect to gross sales. And I'm just going to look at it from that perspective. And now I can see all three of them exactly the way I want. If I don't have enough room, I can make things a little bit bigger and resize things accordingly. So now I can see everything that's there. And again, I can see, for example, that if I click on Serge, I can see all the same numbers, but again, I can see comparatively to all the other different reps accordingly. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the one that's over here, and I'm going to look at things from the perspective of not only to look at it by salesperson, but I want to see the same information. However, this time I want to see it by customer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the actual visualization that I created here. And instead of recreating it from scratch, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and click over here and say duplicate it. So I click on duplicate, and it's right there. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this one and I'm just going to move it down to the bottom over here, right over there. So it's side by side. But this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll back up to where I have my customer information, and I'm going to take my customer and I'm going to just put it right on top of the salesperson. So now I'm looking at the exact same information, but this time now I'm looking at it from the perspective of customer. So now if I went ahead and clicked on Serge D for that 1770, now I can see all of his customers and what revenue they generated from a quotes perspective, from an orders perspective, as well as from a revenue or invoices perspective. And all the information on the right is completely getting adjusted accordingly. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start bringing in a form of a visualization. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and create that visualization by bringing in some additional information. So I'm going to take in my customer group, and I'm going to go ahead and take something like my sales, for example, my gross sales that is sitting in my sales credits area. I'm going to control click the two of them together. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring it into this quadrant over here. It's going to take up a little bit more space than I want it to. So I'm just going to get it to resize the way I want up to here. And now I've got things. So what ends up happening right now is what we're looking at gross sales by customer group. And it's giving me a default view right now of a bar chart. Now, the reason why it's doing that, because the system will use a form of artificial intelligence to show the best visualization for the data that you're displaying. That being said, in this case, it's a bar graph. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to change that visualization to what we call a tree map to show a little bit different perspective. So I'm going to click on the change visualization, and it's actually going to show me different visualizations between a column and a bar and so forth. But then I've got all these other visualizations that are available to me. The one that I'm going to choose, it's called a tree map. So I'm just going to scroll down here to the tree map, and there's, like I said, there's a whole bunch of ones that you can choose. I'm going to click on the tree map. And now it's going to be color coding a bunch of things. So now I'm looking at things from a different perspective, but what I want to do is I can see, where things are in regards to what electricians are doing versus contrast versus this one. I can see the numbers and what they're making. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the perspective of the activity count. So I'm going to go ahead and take my activity count, and I'm just going to bring it right on top, and I'm going to bring it to the heat area. So I bring that in, and now it's actually showing it to me in different colors based on the activity. So you can see that the darker the color, the more activity that's getting generated, and it's actually showing what size it's making up in terms of your overall gross sales revenue. If I put my mouse over something like contrast, or if I put my mouse over something like lumen, I can see that different information that's going on. I can see exactly what's going on. Now, if I want to look at it not for just shares, I can just control click, and now I can see it across the board, across all customers, across all salespeople. And I can see, for example, if I put my mouse on lumen, I can see that we generated gross sales of $3.2 million for an activity count of 6. Now, if I go ahead and click on that, what's happening is just for that customer, I'm actually seeing who generated that $3.2 million of revenue and which sales reps it applies to. And I can see all the customers that make up that revenue and where the activity counts is happening with respect to those guys. Okay, so that's kind of what we can do from that perspective, but I'm going to add one more thing into the overall dynamics. I'm going to add in the ability to do a level of drill through capability. So I'm going to go ahead and bring us back to the original amount of the 6647 for the full amount. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on one of the visualizations that I want. So right now I'm just going to select this visualization here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide drill through capability that's going to allow me to go to lower levels into the reporting module. So what I'm going to do is over here in the top left, I've got this drill through button, which I'm going to click on. And I'm going to go ahead and add a new drill through. So I already have a report that I've already created. And that report that I've created is right here. And I'm just going to tag it to this dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. Now this dashboard has information with regards to salesperson and customer group. I'm just going to match that up to the dashboard items by just hitting the drop down and saying this is the salesperson and this one right here is the customer group. And then I just click on apply. Once I've done that, I can actually click on something like Serge D. And if I right click now on this, you can see that I have 1770 on the activity, 14.7 on quotes, 17.1 on gross sales on the order side, and 16 million in gross sales from an invoice perspective. If I right click now, I now can do the drill through, and it'll actually launch another report showing me that exact same information. Now, what I have the ability to do here is I have the ability to add additional information if I want to this drill through report. I can actually go in and I can actually just edit the report right over here. And from that edit perspective, I have the ability to add additional things. So you'll notice that I have all my stuff that's here. I can actually pick a different salesperson if I want, or I can go right back down to the bottom, again, filter for Serge, and just say include Serge. And there's that information. And now what I'm going to do is I can say, well, I'd like to see who the customers are, not just the customer group. So I can just go into my folder for customers and just go over here and just drag and drop the customer right next to it. And it'll explode things out. I might want to get some information on some address information onto the city that they're in. So I can just go ahead and just drag the city and I can go ahead and bring that and I can see all of that information available as well. So again, it's giving me the perspective right now of looking at in this particular case, from a salesperson being able to see not only the customer group, but seeing the description as well as the city, and then looking at the number of activities that they're generating, the number of, how many hours are they spending in those activities? What is the sales quotes that are getting generated from that, to the orders, to the actual invoices that are being generated at the end of the day?